Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthspan Compass podcast, episode 2. My name is Junaid Mian. I'm a venture partner at 1435 Capital Management, where I head the BioFrontiers Fund, and we're tackling age-related diseases through Earth and space-based biotech. So today, we're decoding essential longevity terminology. Now, these terms are your key to understanding the science of aging. This knowledge will equip you to follow research and have meaningful conversations. Now, think of this as the building block of your longevity literacy. The foundation you will gain here is going to allow you to enhance and better experience our future episodes. So don't worry, everything's nice and simple, and we're glad you're here. And let's start our journey together.
All right. Well, thank you, Junaid. And aging. Let's talk about aging. What exactly is aging in the first place? It is the biological process of progressive decline in our body's function and repair systems as we get older. More than just those visible signs you're familiar with, like wrinkles or maybe slowing down a bit, it's actually about declining cellular maintenance, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. The revolutionary insight about aging is that it is, in fact, modifiable, not just inevitable. And while there is a lot of work being done in this area today, even that concept is not brand new. Actually, it goes back to at least 1935 when scientists at Cornell University first discovered that caloric restriction significantly extended the lifespan of rats, providing the first experimental evidence that aging processes could be altered through interventions like changing your diet, like exercising, or like is being worked on now, potentially a drug or a treatment of some kind. Over to you, Junaid, to talk about several other terms related to aging.
Thanks, Melissa. Now, these terms are all well known throughout the social sphere. Everybody keeps talking about them. So I'm going to go over them and give you the definitions that we believe are, I would say, the right ones. All right, so let's start. Lifespan. What is lifespan? Basically, lifespan is the total length that you're alive from the time you're born to the time of your death. The next term would be life expectancy. Now, that's the average length of time in years that an individual can expect to live. And now, this average is dependent on the country and is also dependent on the gender. So in 2024, in the United States, it was about 77.5 years on average, and it was 74.8 for men and 80.2 for women. We're not going to go into the reasons why that is, but that's the definition there for life expectancy. Now, the one that I think there's a lot of confusion about is health span, which is also in the name of this podcast here. So that is the period of time in a person's life that they're spent in good health, free from chronic diseases. That is the focus of not only this podcast, but it is probably the most important thing you need to know is what health span means. The next word is, and that actually cuts down health span, are age-related diseases. Now, these are diseases that are chronic and are a result for as a result of common with advancing age. So, for example, it's cardiovascular disease, which includes heart disease, stroke, hypertension. Then you have cancer, all different types. And we have neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, other dementias. Then you also have musculoskeletal diseases as well. That includes osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, eye diseases such as macular degeneration, and lung issues such as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and obviously diabetes. So these are the major age-related diseases that cut down on health span. Militia, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Junaid. So there is really a lot to consider when we're talking through these terms: lifespan, life expectancy, health span, age-related diseases. What are those and why are they considered age-related? And that other word that is implied here, longevity, how long we live, and that's been a focus for centuries. But really, another very important aspect of this to consider is the gap between lifespan and health span. That is probably the biggest challenge, at least in this area of biomedicine, in this day and age. And that is, we would like to close that gap. So right now, with science and medicine, where it is today and the way medicine is practiced today, at least in the US and most of the developed world, lifespan is a lot longer than health span. We've gotten very good at keeping people alive for longer. We keep people with stage 4 cancer alive for another 6 months. We keep people alive but bedridden for months or years. And that has been seen as success, and to an extent, it is. And if the goal was just to live longer, we've met that goal fairly well. There's still more work to do, and there are those that believe that lifespan longevity should be much longer than it is today, and that is being worked on. But meanwhile, closing this gap and bringing it to be common that people live more of their lives healthy, without disease, able to move around, enjoy their lives, whatever that means for them. It may mean gardening, it may mean climbing a mountain, whatever it means for them. This is a very individualized area of medicine, or at least it should be, and really lends itself to personalized medicine. But closing that gap so that we aren't just keeping people alive longer, we're keeping us and those around us alive and healthy longer, so that they can enjoy all the days of their lives. So the goal, again, isn't just living longer, it's extending healthy, vital life. And there is a shift in perspective that is needed to target that in biomedical research, to target the biological mechanisms of aging, the reasons that we age, the aging process, to try and figure out treatments and interventions that may arrest it, may stop it. Reversing it would be brilliant as well, and we'll get into some areas of biomedical research working on that. I'm talking about regenerative medicine. But for now, we just love to see more research funding going into looking at the biological causes of aging and targeting aging processes, rather than just treating diseases and keeping people alive, but potentially not having high quality of life. And if we do this, while we also continue funding disease by disease research, which I believe should also happen, but if we put some of the funding, enough of it, so a large amount of it, toward looking into these biological causes of aging and targeting aging processes with interventions, drugs, other types of treatments, cellular treatments, we could actually end up preventing multiple age-related diseases at once. And if we keep funding the biomedical research pipeline disease by disease, looking into a particular disease of aging, like we have been for decades, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, others, that could perhaps result in a treatment, an intervention that will help with aging overall. We don't know where the discoveries will come from. We need to fund both, but we absolutely need to shift that perspective and shift some of the funding to targeting research into aging processes and interventions for aging overall.
Right. Let's move into longevity science. So longevity, another term that is used a lot, but I think a lot of folks are not on the same page as to what it means. So longevity is simply the ability, okay? It's the ability to live longer than the average. So it's living past life expectancy, which we discussed just now. Now, longevity research, science, it focuses on the biological mechanisms that are controlling the aging process at the root causes rather than symptom management, which we do now. Yeah, that's a key distinction. You got to keep that in mind. It's a very multidisciplinary field. It involves, genetics, cell biology, biochemistry, epidemiology. It's a very, very diverse and broad uh, field, and it takes a lot of talent to make all this work. It's not one person who's doing longevity science. There's a lot of scientists involved, and so you got to keep that in mind. Melissa, back to you.
Thank you, Junaid. So let's talk about another term that if you pay attention to the health span, longevity, geroscience field, you'll hear a lot, and that is longevity escape velocity. What exactly is that? Well, it is a hypothetical situation in which life expectancy is improving by way of biomedical research and interventions, whether they are at the personal lifestyle level or at the drug or cellular therapy or other type of intervention level. But life expectancy is improving at a faster rate than people are actually aging, or in which someone's remaining life expectancy, not their life expectancy at birth, life expectancy changes throughout our lives, is extended longer than the time is passing. Why is this important to talk about? Well, in a given year in which longevity escape velocity would be maintained, medical advances that we've been talking about that still need to be discovered and developed and brought to market and made available to people, those advances would increase people's remaining life expectancy more than the year that just went by. So, in other words, you'd be gaining life as you live, as opposed to constantly just losing life and your life gradually working its way to a close. There could potentially come a point at which we pass that and can remain living for longer. So, in very simple terms, when life expectancy increases more than 1 year per year. So instead of your life expectancy getting shorter every year, it actually increases. And this concept was coined by Aubrey de Grey as he was thinking it through with some other scientists. And he is well known as the person that coined the term and was one of the early thinkers on longevity escape velocity. And things that I've heard Aubrey and others say to bring this into a more lay person's terms is it's like a race where you move faster than the receding finish line. And what this does for us is it shows us the potential for accelerating progress in longevity science. If we all believe that we can reach longevity escape velocity, we might just put more effort into looking into these biological mechanisms of aging and trying to develop interventions for them. And what that takes is scientists focused on it and medical clinicians focused on it, doing the clinical trials that are needed but are difficult in this area because it's hard to do a 300-year long clinical trial or even a 50-year long clinical trial to get the needed results. But we need to accelerate the progress in this science. And using this term is one way to help distinguish real breakthroughs from what might just be marketing hype out there. So, another area of biomedical research that's been around quite a while, regenerative medicine plays a major role in any serious conversation about health span, longevity, geroscience, longevity escape velocity. It already is, and will remain front and center in the biomedical research that is done. To bring about knowledge related to the biological causes of aging, and then also the development of potential interventions that will extend health span, longevity, improve geriatric medicine. And so let's talk about regenerative medicine a little bit. What does that mean? That term, that big term that we've been talking about for decades now. So it's near and dear to me having with some of the work that I've done in California to bring about the existence of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, CIRM, that we used to call our state stem cell agency for the first several years when I was there helping found it. And now we have to really call it our state stem cell and gene editing and related research agency, because regenerative medicine as a field has evolved quite a bit. And we've gotten to the point where we are combining stem cell research, whether it's with adult stem cells like bone marrow, that's an adult stem cell because it's already decided what it wants to be when it grows up. It's in your blood system, but it is in fact a stem cell, or embryonic stem cells, or the storied induced pluripotent stem cells that Dr. Shinya Yamanaka back in the early 2000s was the first person to figure out how to derive induced pluripotent stem cells, bringing a somatic cell from your body or my body all the way back to an embryonic state. All of these things that I'm talking about are very important in the study of longevity science and health span, trying to increase people's health span. And so, what regenerative medicine is a set of methods to regrow, repair, or replace damaged cells or tissues. And unlike traditional medicine, it actually restores function by using stem cells, earlier stage cells, to regenerate parts of the body. It's a lot like replacing a worn out car part that you might do. If you had a car that needed a particular thing, might be a tire, it might be something in the engine, might be in the electronic system these days. A lot more cars run that way. You're replacing or repairing, and in this case, using actually cells, sometimes autologous from someone's own body and sometimes not, um, to repair parts of their body. So you really are using cells to regenerate some functionality in somebody's body. And this involves using biological processes, including stem cells and tissue engineering, that promote regeneration, like we've been talking about, and also the healing of tissues that might otherwise be irreparable. And the diseases of aging that we've been talking about, there absolutely are regenerative medicine research and clinical trial programs happening globally to find better treatments and the great hope cures for some of these diseases that have been confounding us for generations, like Alzheimer's, like ALS, like Parkinson's disease. And so regenerative medicine has been around for quite some time. It has evolved at a rapid pace in the last 20 years, I would say, since the discovery in the late 90s of embryonic stem cells, and then in the early 2000s, the derivation, again by Dr. Yamanaka, of induced pluripotent stem cells. And with combining that with tissue engineering and with gene editing, we really have an amazing opportunity with regenerative medicine. A lot of it sounds like science fiction. It would have been science fiction 20 years ago, but now these things are happening. And it's very exciting. And again, this is front and center in any conversation about health span, longevity, and geroscience. Junaid, over to you to tell us more about stem cells.
Yeah, absolutely. Great primer there. All right, so what are stem cells? They're basically special cells that can transform into other different types of cells in the body. They have a unique ability to repair and replace damaged tissues. So you can consider them as the body's repair system that replenishes throughout one's life. Now, the issue is with stem cells are those stem cell populations start to decline as you get older. And that's in terms of the number of stem cells and their function as well. Now, we hear a lot about stem cells, a lot of controversy. So we're going to go into a little bit of what types of stem cells that we're talking about here. So There's embryonic stem cells, which come from embryos, and there's adult induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. And those are basically adult cells, for example, could be skin, blood, or any other type, that are reprogrammed by what Melissa mentioned, by Yamanaka factors, to a prior state when they can become like an embryonic stem cell and then can be coaxed into becoming other types of cells. Now, this is a very revolutionary development, and the reason why is the applications are wide ranging, and Melissa touched on a lot of them. But I think one of the biggest ones I think most people would be interested is on the dermatological side. So you could literally eliminate scars, wrinkles, and other things, and you want to go deeper down. You could eventually reverse dead tissue as a result of a heart attack or a myocardial infarction. So just think about all the uses where stem cells can play a role, and it truly is revolutionary. Melissa, I mean, what do you think about 90 or 120 being the new 60? I mean, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually look forward to it because I can actually say now, 20 plus years ago when I started working in the regenerative medicine field. And when you can say 20 plus years ago when I started working in a field, you are probably, like I am, starting to think about things like arthritis, which is definitely a disease of aging. We're all going to get it, and maybe even, people younger than I am, depending on how much you use your joints and depending on your genetics. And so I have to tell you, I'm really looking forward to that particular application. And I think with that alone, first of all, if we could find ways to regenerate cartilage or regenerate whatever it is we need to regenerate in people's joints, whether it's part of the bone, I think cartilage is the most likely target. With that alone, we'd save a lot of money, and we can get into the economic benefits of this, just like I've had to talk about in the past, the economic benefits of potentially curing one of the diseases that we've talked about today. Plus, there are others on that list that you save billions and billions of dollars in medical costs if you could cure that disease instead of having people living with it, needing treatments for it, or us losing them to that disease as well, which you really can't put a price on. But if we could just cure arthritis, make it so that if you get it, then you get some regenerative medicine and your joints are better, right there, it would make it possible for 90 to be the new 60 in so many ways. And there are so many other applications. I mean, I know that there are programs going on to regenerate heart tissue, certainly to regenerate areas of the brain, using either embryonic stem cells or iPS cells to derive certain types of neurons that are needed to potentially cure or at least arrest a disease like, say, Parkinson's. I know that's being worked on. And when we take a stem cell program, and again, going back to adult stem cells, like we've both mentioned, bone marrow transplants, those are adult stem cells. Those have been in use for more than 50 years. We've been doing bone marrow transplants. We're better at it now. Absolutely. And the amazing thing now is because of the amount of so-called stem cell research that has been going on at this point for 25 years, we have programs that are saving, for example, babies born with baby bubble disease or SCID, severe combined immune deficiency. They are born without an immune system. For those of you that remember, you may have seen the John Travolta movie. When kids were born with this, they were likely to die at a young age, and they had to live in a bubble. They had to live in a plastic covered environment because they had no immune system and they couldn't develop one. Well, I happen to know that over the past 10 plus years, a doctor at UCLA has been saving children by combining a bone marrow transplant, an autologous one, taking a little baby's bone marrow out of its little hip, fixing the gene in their bone marrow that is responsible for populating them with an immune system, and it was not working properly. Fixing it, then putting that bone marrow back into the baby, and their system develops an immune system. Their little body develops an immune system. This would have been science fiction when I started working in regenerative medicine in 2004, and it still sounds like it, as does a clinical trial like we've derived dopaminergic neurons with iPS cells and we're injecting them into people's brains to try and cure them of Parkinson's. That clinical trial is happening. So there's so much potential with regenerative medicine, and so much of it will impact people's health span. Because if you think about a child born with SCID, they usually were not going to live very long in the first place. So that already is affecting their lifespan and certainly their health span. They're living in a bubble, not feeling well all the time. And now we're able to completely change that picture. They'll live a quote normal life, not living in a bubble. And so their life will be longer and their life will be healthier. I know, for example, a little girl born with SCID, she was in this clinical trial. She's now about 10 years old, maybe even older. Wow, I have to think about that. And she rides horses and she surfs and she lives in Southern California. So she's living a great life, running around, and she can do this. And she has a twin sister that was not born with the disease. And now they get to live their lives as twins instead of losing one of them at a very young age. So much potential. I'm very excited about the future of regenerative medicine and, of course, health span, biomedical research into health span and longevity.
Okay, Melissa, that was fantastic. Now let's talk about gene therapy and immunotherapy. So gene therapy, before we get into gene therapy, what is a gene? So a gene, okay, is a segment of DNA that contains instructions for building and maintaining our bodies. It's usually passed from parents to the offspring. Now, with that said, gene therapy is when you modify genes to treat or prevent disease. So, for example, um, you have, say, sickle cell or cystic fibrosis. These are simple ones, and we've already done this. Is you go in there and you replace the faulty genes with the one that it should be, and then after several cycles, as the cells cycle throughout the body, that child that had those ailments, or even adults, no longer will have those ailments. So that's gene therapy. It is absolutely fascinating and absolutely revolutionary, where people that were basically, doomed to a short life now have a chance to live like everybody else. Obviously, that's going to lead to health span. So gene therapy in a nutshell is what I just mentioned. And so now let's go into immunotherapy. Melissa.
Sure, yes. And immunotherapy is the wonderful ability to use the body's own immune system to fight disease. And some of the issues that come up with respect to aging are that as we age, our immune system becomes less effective against fighting infections, fighting disease. We go through immunosenescence and we lose some of the ability that we have in that area when we are younger. And the sad paradox is that as this function decreases while we age, our inflammation in our bodies is increasing. And of course, we can add to that ourselves or have it added to us by our environment, by our lifestyle choices. But either way, as we age, we will have more inflammation in our bodies and at the same time, less of an ability to fight against it. Now, there are some approaches out there to address this. We're working on vaccines to target senescent cells. We're working on immune modulating compounds. And again, all of this takes soundly funded biomedical research. It takes a community of scientists and clinicians that want to work on these things, take them all the way through the process of getting them approved for use by the public. And so it takes the support of the community to get these vaccines and compounds out there. Both of these therapies represent precision approaches to extending health span. I said earlier that I feel that this is an area that lends itself very well to precision medicine. And these approaches absolutely would be that. And again, the speed of this research moves at the pace at which we, not just that we fund it, of course, science takes its own time, no matter how much funding there is, but you have to have enough funding so that science can move at the speed that it will move at and get these potential interventions from the lab to the bedside, all the way through that pipeline and into widespread use, which is what we would like to see. Another term that you may hear, just similar to the longevity escape velocity term, is the longevity dividend. If you're hanging out at longevity conferences or you're interested and have been reading articles or listening to podcasts about longevity, health span, geroscience, you've probably heard the term longevity dividend. And what is a dividend? Well, in this case, it would be the collective benefits from extending healthy, productive life. So it would be good for just one person, but it would also be good for society. And in some ways, it would be good financially for society. It would be a lot less expensive than having to treat people with so many chronic diseases later in life. And you've probably heard that the last few weeks, months, years of someone's life, often days, are the most expensive healthcare days of their lives. Often a few days or weeks, certainly, in a hospital being treated for something acute will cost more than the person being treated there spent on their healthcare for their entire life. So that's just one benefit that we would get. That's a societal benefit. It also is an individual benefit because chronic illnesses and diseases and injuries can bankrupt people and families. At the individual level, in addition to that financial benefit, you and I would have more active years, more lives, more engaged living at those later years in our lives, more time with our loved ones, more times to swim in the ocean, climb a mountain, garden, go birding, go to the library to check out books, whatever it is that you want to do. Another benefit would be for healthcare. I already mentioned reducing costs. We could certainly do that. And it would just, I think, take a lot of the burden off of our overtaxed healthcare system as well. At the societal level, it would transform our life structure to 20 plus years more than we have right now. And that means, I don't know if this will be good for everybody, you can work longer, but you can also just do whatever it is that you want to do for longer. You'd have more years of being able to spend time as a lifelong learner, if that's what you want to do. More years working on that lifelong project, writing the next novel, building the next company, climbing the next mountain, whatever it is that you'd like to do. And then also you'd have more time if you just want to retire and relax, you'd have more time to do that as well. So lots of benefits to be derived if we can get to the point where we are achieving that longevity dividend.
Excellent. Let me build on a little bit of what Melissa said, right? Maybe even add to it. So we touched on our first episode, the economic and social benefits of longevity. And although the scientific merits are there and all that stuff, one thing we have to focus on is I would say the societal benefits. But first of all, on the economic side, yes, you get to live, you get to work longer. The government gets to collect more taxes, so it benefits the government as well. But I think the main part is the social aspect, right? It changes almost it changes the social paradigm. And this is like framing longevity as a social good, not just as a personal health matter. Because at the end of the day, we're all connected to networks in terms of family, friends, and so forth. And when someone's sick, it disrupts that whole network. You know, I've lived through it, living through it now. So I can tell you that it's very disruptive. If it wasn't there, I would say that'd be fantastic. Now, it also means that you can reimagine your life, your later life, as a rich and productive period rather than inevitable decline. Think about it. You're sitting here at 50, 60, 70, and you might have another 30 or 40 years. It's not the end. You don't have to rush to do this and that. Now you can reimagine, well, what's the next chapter of my life? You can write whole new chapters, that you could never do before. Think about how powerful that is, right? You're literally writing your life. Now you got the time to do it. What are you going to do? And like Melissa said, there's a potential for multiple careers, lifelong learning, new models of work and retirement. What are you going to do? How many friends are you going to visit? What are you going to do with your grandkids, your grandkids? I mean, imagine the possibilities. That is the longevity dividend. It's it's taking longevity, looking at a social context, and seeing the benefit that it has throughout society. It's not just about you and your life living, healthy and doing all this other stuff. It's about what can you do to contribute more to society? Because see, sick people have like one wish. Healthy people, they have many wishes. And so, with that said, let's wrap up this section. Melissa.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing us start to derive dividends from this work like we already have from the work in regenerative medicine. And while the longevity health span space is not new, as we've discussed here and in our previous podcast, definitely not new, goes back centuries. It is the case that the field itself is right now growing at a rapid clip. So I'm hopeful that we will get there soon with one or more interventions. And whether it's disease specific or aging specific, either way, if we could cure Parkinson's, that would be amazing. Right? If we find the answer to why we age and can somehow arrest that biological mechanism, that would be great too. Let's make sure we're funding and supporting the science that needs to go into making the discoveries that will result in the interventions that we need.
Okay, here we are. We're at the end of episode 2. Now, we promise to build on this foundation in future episodes. Now, knowledge is the first step toward empowerment. You now possess the ability to make informed decisions about your health, and now you can also engage in meaningful discussions about longevity. Now, I want to thank you for your time and attention. Until next time, may HealthSpan be your North Star. See you on the next episode.